This content is for informational purposes only and does not replace professional medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider for personal health concerns. While you go about your daily routine, billions of specialized defenders are patrolling your bloodstream, identifying potential threats before you even feel a hint of illness. It is a biological marvel that operates with surgical precision, yet most of us remain entirely unaware of the sophisticated warfare happening beneath our skin. Imagine a vast, silent fortress that never sleeps, constantly scanning for intruders that shouldn't be there. Every breath you take and every surface you touch introduces a host of microscopic entities into your environment. Most of these are harmless, but occasionally, a pathogen attempts to breach your defenses. When that happens, your body doesn't just react. It learns, adapts, and develops a tailor-made strategy to neutralize the threat. These are your antibodies. They are the frontline agents of your adaptive immunity, capable of remembering past encounters and ensuring that your body is better prepared for future skirmishes. The sheer efficiency of this process is staggering, and researchers continue to uncover the intricate ways these molecules communicate with other white blood cells to coordinate a systemic response. We are not merely passive recipients of our environment. We are actively guarded by a dynamic, evolving intelligence that works tirelessly to maintain your internal equilibrium. By peering into this microscopic world, we can appreciate the delicate balance required to keep you functioning at your best. As we pull back the curtain on this biological theater, we will break down exactly how these defenders are manufactured and how they identify which targets to neutralize. Let's begin by examining the unique cellular machinery that brings these essential proteins to life. But before we dive into the assembly line of the immune system, we must first get acquainted with the product itself. At the molecular level, these defenders are known as immunoglobulins, sophisticated proteins that act as the body's primary intelligence agents. Think of them not merely as simple barriers, but as highly specific, Y-shaped biological keys designed to fit only one particular lock. If you were to zoom in deep enough to see them, you would notice that each immunoglobulin is composed of 4 polypeptide chains. This structure is far from accidental. The 2 tips of the Y, often called the variable regions, are the most important part of the entire mechanism. They are shaped uniquely to recognize a specific antigen, a foreign invader like a virus or bacteria. Because of this structural diversity, research suggests that the human body can generate an almost infinite variety of these Y-shaped tools, each tailored to identify a distinct threat with remarkable precision. This is the cornerstone of our adaptive immunity. When your body encounters a pathogen for the first time, these immunoglobulins are tasked with performing a sort of molecular handshake. Once a perfect fit is established between the tip of the Y and the surface of a pathogen, the antibody signals for backup, effectively tagging the invader for destruction. Medical professionals often describe this as a targeted strike, where the body avoids collateral damage by focusing its resources only on the specific culprit identified by the immunoglobulin. It is a brilliant system of checks and balances that allows us to recover from illnesses and, in many cases, gain long-term protection against future exposure. However, building these precise tools is an incredibly energy-intensive process that requires a highly coordinated cellular workforce. Let's head inside the bone marrow to witness the initial stage of this remarkable manufacturing process. Once we step past the threshold of the bone marrow, we find ourselves in a bustling hub of constant biological activity. Think of these cells as raw recruits, waiting for a specific signal to initiate their transformation into highly specialized manufacturing units. They patrol your bloodstream and lymphatic system, each carrying a unique surface receptor, a biological sensor designed to lock onto a specific invader, such as a virus or bacteria. When a B cell encounters an antigen that fits its receptor like a key into a lock, a complex signaling cascade sparks into motion. This initial binding event serves as the primary activation signal, though research suggests that full deployment usually requires a second opinion from a helper T cell. Once the B cell receives this confirmation, it undergoes a dramatic metamorphosis known as clonal expansion. It begins to divide rapidly, creating an army of identical copies, all programmed with the exact same blueprints to combat the identified threat. Within a matter of days, a single activated B cell can give rise to thousands of descendants. As this population grows, many of these cells differentiate into plasma cells, the heavy-duty factories of your immune system. They expand their internal infrastructure, specifically the endoplasmic reticulum, to manage the immense workload of producing thousands of antibody molecules every second. These proteins are then released into the extracellular fluid and bloodstream, where they act as precision-guided missiles, tagging pathogens for destruction or neutralizing them directly. They transform into memory B cells, long-lived sentinels that remain in your system for years, or even a lifetime. These cells act as the biological equivalent of a historical archive, retaining the specific configuration of the antibody needed to defeat that particular pathogen. It is a sophisticated, layered strategy that maintains your health long after the initial crisis has passed. That is where the battle moves from manufacturing to the front lines. Before we can witness that frontline cleanup, we have to backtrack slightly to understand the initial spark. For the immune system to launch a defensive operation, it needs a specific reason to act. But how does your system distinguish between a harmless piece of dust and a dangerous viral invader? You can visualize antigens as unique identification tags attached to the surface of every pathogen. When your immune cells, specifically the vigilant sentinels known as antigen-presenting cells, stumble upon one of these foreign markers, the alarm bells begin to ring. It is not a blind reaction, but a highly precise, targeted identification process. Here, they present the captured evidence to your B cells. Think of this as showing a wanted poster to a specialized task force. It is a biological lock-and-key mechanism. This process is remarkable because it ensures that your body doesn't waste energy producing defenses against threats that don't exist. Studies indicate that this recognition stage is the most critical hurdle in the entire immune response. However, once that identification is confirmed, the mobilization is swift and overwhelming. By cataloging these antigens, your body keeps a detailed record of every adversary it has successfully faced. Once they are released into the circulation, they must navigate the complex landscape of your tissues to find their match. That mechanical interaction is a marvel of microscopic engineering. But this exquisite mechanism, designed to protect your biological integrity, is not infallible. While we often marvel at the precision of the immune system, there are times when the internal compass falters, leading to consequences that can ripple through your entire well-being. When the body's internal surveillance network misinterprets its own tissues as foreign invaders, we enter the complex and often challenging territory of autoimmune conditions. In these instances, the very antibodies meant to serve as your shield begin to target your joints, your organs, or your skin, mistaking essential building blocks of your own anatomy for a dangerous pathogen. Conversely, the system may fail in the opposite direction. Imagine a security team that is entirely absent when a breach occurs. This is the reality for those living with primary immunodeficiency. In these cases, the body lacks the capacity to generate a sufficient repertoire of antibodies, leaving the individual vulnerable to recurrent infections that a healthy immune system would typically neutralize with ease. Studies indicate that these deficiencies are often rooted in the genetic blueprints that dictate how B cells develop and mature. Without these specialized proteins, the body struggles to maintain its defensive perimeter, turning routine exposures into significant health hurdles. For those facing autoimmunity, the objective is often to modulate the immune response, dampening the overactive fire without extinguishing the protective spark entirely. For those managing immunodeficiency, the focus shifts towards supplementation and supportive therapies that provide the missing defenses from external sources. It is a constant, subtle calibration, a search for the equilibrium that keeps your biological systems functioning in harmony. While the journey of managing these conditions is undeniably difficult, advancements in immunology are shedding new light on how we might eventually restore order to these erratic systems. Understanding the mechanism behind these malfunctions is the first step toward reclaiming stability, but the story of your immune system doesn't end with these failures. To understand how we can support this resilience, we must look at the external factors that influence your baseline health and how you can actively contribute to your own internal defense strategy. However, before we can talk about bolstering those defenses, we have to learn how to listen to the signals your body is already broadcasting. Your immune system is rarely silent when it is struggling. It speaks through subtle, often overlooked physical cues that serve as a dashboard for your internal health. Perhaps the most common indicator of an overburdened immune response is a pattern of frequent, recurring infections. If you find yourself cycling through colds, lingering sinus issues, or minor infections that take far longer to resolve than they once did, your system might be signaling that its resources are stretched thin. Research suggests that when the body is locked in a state of chronic immune activation, it loses the agility required to respond effectively to new, everyday threats. Beyond susceptibility to illness, persistent inflammation is another hallmark of a system under duress. This isn't always marked by obvious swelling or pain. Instead, it often manifests as a vague, heavy fatigue that sleep doesn't seem to touch, or perhaps digestive discomfort that persists despite your best efforts at dietary changes. Think of it as a security system that has been triggered by a false alarm and never quite reset, leaving the sensors overly sensitive and the entire house on edge. We also see clear correlations between prolonged high-stress environments and a dampened immune profile. Studies indicate that sustained cortisol exposure can suppress the production of lymphocytes, the very cells responsible for identifying pathogens and orchestrating the antibody response. It is not just about the external pathogens you encounter, it is about the internal environment you maintain. Paying attention to these physical whispers is a vital act of self-advocacy. By acknowledging these patterns of exhaustion or lingering inflammation, you shift from a passive observer of your health to an active participant in your recovery. Now that we have established how to interpret these critical signs of stress, we can move forward to examine the specific, evidence-based strategies that help shift your body out of this reactive state and back into a posture of resilience. Moving from that state of awareness into action is where your immune system truly finds its footing. When we talk about fostering resilience, we aren't looking for overnight transformations. We are talking about the steady, compounding interest of daily habits that provide your body with the raw materials it needs to manufacture and deploy antibodies effectively. These aren't just wellness buzzwords. They are the physiological signals that tell your body it is safe to prioritize long-term defense mechanisms over immediate stress responses. Beyond your daily routine, modern medicine offers sophisticated tools to bridge the gap when your body needs an extra layer of protection. Vaccinations remain the most effective evidence-based strategy for training your immune system. This biological rehearsal ensures that if you encounter the real threat, your system can mount a defense with speed and precision that would otherwise take days or weeks to coordinate. In instances where your body requires immediate, external support, medical professionals may turn to monoclonal antibody therapy. Think of this as a targeted intervention. By delivering these pre-made defenders directly into your circulation, clinicians can provide a temporary shield, neutralizing pathogens before they can establish a foothold. This is particularly valuable for individuals whose immune systems may be compromised or unable to respond quickly enough to a new challenge on their own. However, these medical advancements work best when they complement, rather than replace, your internal biological rhythm. Therefore, managing your nervous system is as much a part of your immune strategy as any clinical treatment. It is about creating an internal environment where your white blood cells can function at their peak efficiency, unhindered by the constant demands of a body stuck in fight-or-flight mode. As you integrate these approaches, balancing the science of clinical intervention with the art of sustainable lifestyle habits, you build a defense system that is both flexible and formidable. As we transition, we will look at how to monitor the long-term sustainability of your immune health and what to do when your body signals that it needs a different kind of support. Beyond these daily rhythms of maintenance, we are currently witnessing a golden age of immunological discovery. The rapid evolution of mRNA technology, which vaulted into the spotlight through recent global vaccine efforts, has fundamentally rewritten the rulebook for how we teach the body to defend itself. We are moving away from simply introducing weakened pathogens and toward providing the body with the specific, precise blueprints required to manufacture its own protective antibodies. This shift represents a transition from reactive medicine to a proactive, programmable defense strategy. Scientists are now engineering monoclonal antibodies that act like heat-seeking missiles, capable of neutralizing threats with unprecedented accuracy, while simultaneously exploring how we can teach the immune system to recognize and eliminate stubborn pathogens that have historically evaded our defenses. It is a frontier where molecular biology meets computational precision, offering a glimpse into a future where our internal shields are not just reactive, but anticipatory. As we wrap up this exploration, let us synthesize the core pillars of what we have uncovered together. You have seen how your B cells act as master craftsmen, refining these antibodies through a process of constant adaptation and memory, ensuring that once a threat is met, it is rarely forgotten. The takeaway is clear: your immune system is not a static wall, but a dynamic, learning entity that thrives on balance. By prioritizing nutrient-dense fuel, restorative sleep, and intentional stress management, you are not just living well, you are actively providing the raw materials and the stability your immune system needs to execute its complex, microscopic work. Protecting your health is a partnership between the biological marvel you were born with and the conscious choices you make every single day. This content is for informational purposes only. Please consult a doctor for health concerns. If you found this information helpful, consider subscribing to stay updated on our journey through the fascinating landscape of human biology. Thank you for spending this time with us to better understand the quiet, constant work happening beneath your skin.